So is the rapture biblical? And is the rapture going to happen tomorrow or in the coming days? Well, I'll just say this. We do not know the day or time. Yes, I believe at a end of a video that I created not too long ago, I kind of raised that question. I can't remember exactly what I said, but hopefully nobody, thought that I was, suggesting that the rapture was going to be in the coming days, because, I, obviously don't know. So I kind of wanted to, clear that up. But then, because we don't know the day or time. But what do I believe about the rapture? What do you believe about the rapture? Let me know in the comments. I'll tell you what I believe about the rapture. I lean towards that belief. Now, I don't necessarily, I'm still, like somebody that's like, well, there probably is a rapture. But I'm somebody that, doesn't quite really know, right? But I lean more towards it. Why? Because I can find it in scripture. In fact, if you look at Genesis chapter 5, it tells you, it goes over the names, and when it gets to Enoch, it tells you how many years Enoch lived, and then it tells you that God took him. By definition, by definition, and I gotta put emphasis on that, by definition, that is a rapture, so to speak. And that's why I lean towards it. Now, I'm not a biblical scholar, so if you were to tell me the Greek word or what, I have nothing, I don't know that, I don't. But see, here's the thing. There's a lot of biblical scholars, theologians, that will say this Greek word means this, and whatever it may be. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. That's, I'm not in that field. But I will say is that sometimes we can say this word in Greek means this, but we have a misunderstanding of, what is being, because, for example, and I don't know if this is a good example or not, but I'm going to use it because I believe that this still ties in, to what I'm talking about. The Jews studied the law of Moses inside and out. Now, there were some Jews that knew what the law of Moses was there for, right? But then there were others that, they knew the law of Moses, but more like as a religion. And they did those things out of religion, not out of relationship with their God. What I'm getting at is they still missed the point. So they studied and they knew the law of Moses, but there were, many that still missed the point of the law of Moses. And what I'm saying is, likewise, a theologian a biblical scholar, and I'm not saying all the time, right? Like, I'm not saying all the time, and I'm not saying that any of them do miss the point, or, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, likewise, anybody can study scripture and still miss, certain things that it is saying. A theologian can, study words in Greek and study the meaning of that word in Greek and still have a misunderstanding. That's why you kind of have to be careful, especially when talking about the rapture and saying that it's biblical. Yes, like, I believe that there could be a word in there that is, that in Greek means, rapture per se. But, like, again, it's just, and that's the reason why I'm kind of still, I mean, I lean towards it because, like I pointed out earlier, in the book of Genesis, Enoch, by definition, was raptured. Now, he was like the only one of the days of Noah that would have been, taken up into heaven, by God. But that's the reason why I lean more towards it. However, when I hear theologians and biblical scholars, talking about it's biblical because there's a certain word, there's a word that, in Greek, when translated, means rapture. Now, I'm just typically somebody that is careful before I just go out because they could be right. I'm not saying that they are not right. I'm not saying that they're wrong or right. I'm just somebody that's typically a little more careful. I don't want to be gullible and just be like, oh, well, a theologian told me that this word in Greek means this, and that's what I believe. I just, because again, you gotta remember that we can study something. We can literally study. It doesn't matter what we study. We can study the book of Revelation. We can study science or whatever it may be. And we can still have a misunderstanding. There's a lot of evolutionists out there that have a clear misunderstanding of how the world was created. Like, and they but that's what I'm saying. It is you could be somebody that studies the law of Moses and you can misunderstand the meaning and the purpose of the law of Moses. And likewise, just because you're a theologian, just because you're a Bible scholar, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have all the answers. I'm not saying you do or you don't. I'm just saying, like, let's use discernment. Let's use the gifts of the Spirit. Let's be walking in the Spirit as we are studying the Bible and that.